My name is Colin Diaz, and I have the pleasure of serving as the President and CEO for the Culver City Chamber. Welcome to everybody that has joined us today. And I'd like to first thank the City and Economic Development Department for agreeing to put this on. This is going to be the Culver City COVID-19 Orders webinar. As you are all hopefully well aware, there has been a public order that was put in place, a safer at home order for Culver City, and then multiple subsequent supplemental orders. And they have agreed, the Economic Development Department has agreed to go over those orders to give a little bit more detail and some explanation. And so we will have members of their team that will be sharing that. I'd also like to thank and welcome our Mayor, Megan Sally Wells, and Vice Mayor Joran Eriksson. A couple of housekeeping things to share in advance. As you're on the call, please mute your call. If you have any questions, you'll see at the very bottom of your screen is the chat option. If you select that and send your questions, you can either send them to everybody or to Monica Alvarez. She will be curating the questions, and when we get to the end of the presentation, there will be time for the question and answer period. As we stated in our invitation, there are some things, I know, questions that businesses may have that are specific to your individual business. There is a website, which I'll let Elaine, so that I don't mess it up, share with you all. That is the best place to go for individual determinations. What we'll have today is more of a collective and explanation of the different orders and items that are tied to the orders. This meeting will be recorded, so if you happen to not be a great note taker or you think that you may have forgotten something, it'll be made available. We'll definitely have it on our website. I believe the city will make it available as well. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Elaine, and as Todd comes on, I'll kind of give you a heads up so we can fold him in as well.
Sounds great. Thanks, Colin. Good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. We're very honored and privileged to be able to present this to you. We know that the orders have been fast and furious and a little bit confusing, so we wanted to take today to go over what these orders do and how Culver City is responding to this global pandemic and specifically to our business community. So give me a moment. I'm going to stop the video and I'm going to share the screen. Oh, Colin, you need to make me a host. Okay. Yeah.
Thought I did that already. Just add me as a co-host as well so that I can still let people in.
Hold on one second. Let me do that. Great. You are a co-host.
Perfect.
Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Great. I'm going to minimize that. Let me clean this up so I can read. Okay, great. So as many of you know, Culver City declared a local emergency, similar to what the state, Governor Newsom, did as well on March 14th. At that time, our Emergency Operations Center was activated. We currently have 58 individuals that are working our emergency operation that are dedicated towards this crisis and our response. In coordination with the state, county, and in alignment with the City of Los Angeles, Culver City issued a public order on March 16th, the Safer at Home public order, and has issued 7 subsequent supplements, mouthful, related to health and public safety. As of yesterday, April 16th, Los Angeles County indicated that there were reports of 10,496 cases and 402 deaths related to COVID-19. Culver City, according to Los Angeles County Department of Health, has 34 confirmed cases.
No, leave it in the lobby.
So on March 16th, the Safer at Home public order issued a number of directives. The first was closures of bars, lounges, and nightclubs that did not serve food. It required that dine-in, food service, and consumption on premises was prohibited, but takeout and pickup was still permitted. closures of movie theaters, live performance venues, bowling alleys, arcades, any place where individuals, large groups of individuals gathered, closures of gyms, fitness studios, arts, dance, music, cultural venues, and indoor recreation facilities. And it also provided a residential eviction moratorium, which would allow for a 6-month payback provision. On March 27th, we issued the first supplement to the public order, and we incorporated the Safer at Home public order that was issued by Los Angeles Mayor Garcetti on March 19th. In this order, we established a moratorium on evictions for commercial tenants after some conversations with our chamber. And this allows our commercial tenants to have a 6-month payback grace period and provision so that there's no evictions related to COVID-19 at this time. We also relax signage. As many of you know, Culver City on a typical day doesn't allow sandwich board signage, but we relaxed the signage so that food vendors, any place that was doing pickup or takeout could advertise on the street so people can easily see them. We also waived outdoor dining and valet license fees, and we extended and deferred our business tax due date submission to June 1st, 2020. Our second supplement to the public order was issued on April 1st, and in this we expanded the scope for the residential tenant eviction moratorium, and we also extended its duration to May 31st, 2020. Our third supplement to the public order was the same day, April 1st, and this is where the city, in conjunction with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and the County of Los Angeles deemed that firearm retailers are considered an essential business during this time. Our fourth supplement to the public order incorporated the revised Safer at Home public order that Los Angeles issued, and in that it just clarified provisions of the March 19th order related to what's essential and not essential. Los Angeles also incorporated stronger enforcement mechanisms for lack of compliance for non-essential businesses. The fifth order that we issued on April 7th, again in response to what we were hearing from our commercial community, was an extension of the commercial tenant eviction moratorium through May 31st. This allowed our tenants and our commercial businesses to be able to plan more appropriately rather than waiting for the current orders to expire. Our sixth supplement to the public order was on April 8th, and in this we incorporated the City of Los Angeles Worker Protection Order, which outlines face covering, infection precaution protocols, and social distancing requirements for essential businesses and those individuals that visit those essential businesses. Lastly, our seventh supplement to the public order was issued on April 11th. Again, we incorporated the revised Safer at Home and Worker Protection Orders that were issued by the City of Los Angeles. And in this particular order, again, it clarifies and outlines some public health protocols for essential businesses, for face coverings for workers, and also adherence to communicable disease control recommendations provided by the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. So I'm going to take a few minutes and go through specifically what this says. So it updated and clarified some of the essential businesses pertaining to pet daycare providers, stores that sell beer, wine, and liquor, so liquor stores, convenience stores, pawn shops, nurseries, and individuals and businesses that ship and truck, so our delivery service team. It also clarified the real estate portion. There was some confusion that we were having there. So in this, it says that virtual real estate showings are permitted and in-person showings are allowed, but only for vacant units or vacant houses. So in other words, it has to be that a tenant is not currently living or residing there. It can't just be that the tenant leaves for the afternoon and then comes back. And then it also allows that businesses that manufacture personal protective equipment or PPEs are allowed to continue and are considered as essential. So we know there's been some questions about what is considered essential and not. This is all outlined in our public order, specifically the 7th supplement, and all of our public orders are listed online. If you go to the coronavirus page, we actually have a tab on the page that details public orders, so you can kind of read through each one if you want. These are additive orders, so the supplements don't supersede, but they do add and they do enhance. So a good place to start usually is from the back moving forward, because there could be clarifications and modifications from the earlier orders. So in this particular we're just going to run through this really quick, and I'm not going to read all the language. You will have this as a resource, as Colin mentioned, after today. But healthcare operations, including veterinary, mental, behavioral, cannabis dispensary, and manufacturers and suppliers of healthcare items. Fitness gyms and exercise gyms and similar facilities are not considered essential. Grocery stores, thank goodness, water retailers, farm and produce stands, including our farmers market that is now reopened. In case some of you don't know, on March 31st, we reopened it. Fresh, frozen meats. And this also includes stores that sell groceries and other non-grocery products. So the Targets, the Costco's. Food cultivation, including farming, livestock, and fishing, not so much relevant here. Organizations and businesses that provide food and shelter for needy individuals, including gang prevention, intervention, domestic violence, homeless services. Newspapers, television news, radio, magazines, podcasts, and journalism are still allowed to do business. Gas stations, thank goodness. Banks, credit unions, financial institutes, hardware and building stores, day labor centers, and nurseries. Another issue we've had is some people have been curious about construction, residential construction, and in the essential orders, it does allow plumbers, electricians, exterminators, custodial and janitorial workers, HVAC. It allows for private security and other service providers that maintain the safety, sanitation, and essential operation of properties and other activities. Businesses that provide mailbox and shipping services, educational institutions. There are some rules about how groups of children are allowed to be maintained in those institutions and those schools. Laundromats, dry cleaners, and laundry service providers. As we mentioned, schools and other entities that provide free food service. Restaurants and retail food facilities that provide and offer food to customers but are allowed to do it via delivery and pickup or drive-through. As we mentioned, we did relax some parking standards, especially in our commercial corridor, to allow for a 15 minutes grace period so that people can easily park their cars, run in, grab their food, and then head back home. The restaurants and the food retailers, this is probably one of our, and the grocery stores are probably some of our largest, most visited businesses from our public. So everyone there now is going to be required to implement the worker protection orders, which we'll go through in a couple of minutes. They're also required to issue social distancing. So hopefully you guys have been seeing either tape on the ground or some other mode of creating a social distancing barricade between the cashier and the other people who are waiting in line. Businesses that supply other essential businesses, businesses that provide storage of products to for people to be able to work at home, businesses that ship and deliver groceries, airlines, taxis, car sharing services, home-based care for disabled persons, seniors, adults, or children. Professional services such as legal, leasing, and real estate transaction. There's some more detail on that. Child care facilities, and again, this is where we were talking about that we have to create stable groups for the children that are in those facilities. Hotels, motels, shared rental units, and similar. And military defense, contractors, people that are working for the government, or subcontractors and prime consultants. Lastly, we have there's a category in here that is also considered essential business infrastructure. This relates to construction of commercial, office, institutional, residential housing buildings. This is the construction component. Operations related to airport, food supply, solid waste collection, recycling, flood control. So essentially this is pretty much a governmental and or construction component. So non-essential businesses. Non-essential businesses are pretty much any type of business that wasn't categorized in those previous slides. And those businesses now, previously, a few weeks ago, we shut down non-essential businesses, and unfortunately, if you could not do the work remotely, you were shut down completely. Now the new orders allow that non-essential businesses may conduct basic minimum in-person operations. So the idea is to maximize the number of employees that are at home, but operators may go in to do a minimum basic in-person operation, which would include inventory, security, custodial services, payroll, employee benefits processing, and any other reasonable activity to maximize the rest of the team staying home. For our essential businesses, there's the worker protection order that just came out. We just talked about that. And it requires both customers and workers to wear face coverings. For customers, it's bandanas, scarves, or other face coverings over their noses and mouths while working at grocery stores, restaurants, and most other essential businesses in the city. Employees must wash these face covering frequently, at least once a day, and single-use face coverings must be properly discarded in the trash. They cannot be used again. It's important to note, and I'm sure all of you have been seeing this, but the face coverings don't need to be medical-grade masks. Those should and are reserved for healthcare professionals. These can be anything from an old t-shirt to a bandana. And on our website and in our updates, we do have a tutorial that explains how to make a home mask. It's not a fancy, it doesn't need to be sewn, but it does need to protect your nose and mouth. Employer obligations related to the worker protection order. Employers must permit their employees to wash their hands at least every 30 minutes. They must provide at their expense non-medical grade face coverings for their employees. So if you are an essential business and you have employees, you do need to provide some type of face covering that meets the qualifications we just described. Employers must ensure that employees have access to clean restrooms stocked with the required cleaning products. And employers must implement social distancing measuring for their customers, visitors, and employees that provides a 6-foot buffer between individuals to the extent possible. Businesses may refuse admission or service to anyone who fails to wear a face covering. So we have actually had this circumstance where we had an individual go into a store that wasn't wearing a face mask. So it's important, if you have a store or another essential business, please make sure to post the infection precaution protocols, which we have a sheet online. We can email that to you as well, which reminds individuals that if they have a fever, they're having any respiratory issues, if they're not wearing a mask, they should not be going into the store. So businesses do have the authority to refuse admission to individuals that are not wearing a face covering at this time. This is by public order. All essential and non-essential businesses conducting minimum operations must implement infection control procedures required by the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. We do have a link to this on our website. I can send it to you as well. It provides the level of cleaning and disinfection that needs to take place. Again, as we talked about, you should be providing hand washing facilities with soap, water, or hand sanitizer. You've all heard this. It needs to contain at least 60% alcohol. You should be posting signage at public entries that instructs members of the public not to enter if they're experiencing symptoms. We just talked about that. And make sure that you're implementing the recommendations provided by public health regarding cleaning and disinfecting the site. So we talked about that as well. There's also, as required, on April 15th at 11:59 p.m., I hope you all saw the guidance that came out from the city, but it does require the completion of a social distance protocol form. This was provided by the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. We are asking that both non-essential businesses that are having access to their facility, and of course all essential businesses, complete this form and post it by the main entrance. Additionally, a copy of the form should be given to each employee so that they have guidance and awareness of what the protocols are for washing their hands, wearing their face coverings, and trying to implement social distancing. And I'm going to let Liz go ahead and talk about our commercial tenant eviction moratorium. This is a program very similar to what some other cities across the entire nation have done to protect our commercial businesses. It essentially allows, though not always perfect and certainly put in place quickly, it essentially allows for a pause for our commercial tenants to avoid having an immediate eviction and allow the city to be able, as resources come in, to allow for recovery. Liz, do you want to take over?
Sure. So, hello everybody. So, like Elaine said, the prohibition for eviction of commercial tenants in the city during the emergency period, if the tenant is able to show the inability to pay rent due to the circumstances related to COVID-19. These circumstances, and they have to submit these different forms of documentation, is the loss of income due to COVID-19 related workplace closure, childcare expenditures due to the closure, healthcare expenses related to being ill with COVID-19, expenses or loss of income due to caring for a member of a tenant's household who is ill with COVID-19, or reasonable expenditures that stem from government-ordered emergency measures. So next slide. Tenants will be able to provide landlords with written notice, will need to provide landlords with written notice, email or text, but you need to provide the actual documentation within 30 days of the date the rent is due, which notifies the landlord of inability to pay full rent due to COVID-19 using the documentation that I just explained. Notification must include supporting documentation as described in Section 6 of the implementation measures. These implementation measures are on our website, in the business resource website for COVID-19. If you'd like the city to review and provide copies of all written documentations and supporting communication and supporting documentation submitted to the landlord, you could provide that to me, elizabeth.garcia@culvercity.org, so that the city may evaluate and respond to your case accordingly.
Oh, actually, Liz, can you go through, I think there may have been some questions regarding that the landlords cannot charge late fees or penalties?
Yes, I believe Heather Baker, who's on the line, will be answering that question. Heather?
Okay.
Sure. Yes. Hi, Heather Baker, Assistant City Attorney. The landlord is prohibited from charging or collecting any late charges or fees when the payment of rent is delayed for reasons related to COVID-19 and their inability to pay. So they would not be able to charge late fees. That would include interest.
Great. Thanks, Heather. So we're going to finish up the conversation, or at least our presentation, to talk about the different levels of business assistance there are at the state, the county, and the city level. I'm sure many of you have been watching the federal stimulus packages and also watching how quickly they're being depleted. So Liz is going to run through what she sort of handpicked to be probably the most applicable and responsive to our community.
Yeah, so as Elaine said, since the federal funds at this point are drying up, I did not want to include that at this point, but I wanted to focus on state and county resources that are available at this time. Well, there was a question about the sales tax, and right now I actually was pulling up the name. The state of California's Department of Tax and Fee Administration, they do have relief payment plans at this point, and that's what the first bullet is. Provides small businesses interest-free deferral of sales and use tax of up to $50,000 for businesses with less than $5 million in taxable sales. So you could contact me again, and I could put you in contact if that we wanted just to kind of make this a brief presentation. The other state resource is the IBank, which is a small business disaster relief loan guarantee program, and the loan guarantee mitigates obviously the risk assumed by a traditional lending institution. Small businesses with less than 750 employees, and some nonprofits are eligible for this program. To apply, contact a participating lender, and the lender list is available through the state website, which is ibank.ca.gov. The next program is available through the California EDD, which is an unemployment program. But the employers impacted by COVID-19 may apply for the unemployment program work sharing program. This program allows employers to seek alternatives to layoffs, retaining trained employees by reducing their hours and wages that are partially offset by unemployment benefits. Workers of employers who are approved to participate in the program receive a percentage of their weekly unemployment benefit amount based on the percentage of hours and wages reduced not to exceed 60%. And I believe, Elaine, go back. And for this program, our partners at the Economic Development Corporation are answering these specific questions and are able to help you directly. And we have a contact with Barbara Levine, who is their business assistance person, who is able to walk you through this program. Next, we'll go into the county business assistance. Yesterday, Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas announced what the supervisors this week approved $12 million of seed business assistance and that will be in forms of loans and grants. The details will be announced within about 10 to 14 days. And I'm sure the chamber and the city will be sure to roll that out whenever we get that information, so everyone is aware of applying for those programs. The last county business assistance we wanted to put out there is our rapid response teams for the county. Rapid response provides assistance for specific businesses, helps avoid layoffs where possible, and supports your workers through the process. Employee services, customized trainings, assistance for filing unemployment insurance and claims, and just trying to think outside the box. This is a one-on-one assistance, and we do have 2 teams in our county assisting Culver City businesses, which is our one-stop center on Sepulveda, Grant Smith, and the LA EDC, and with Barbara Levine. So I could put you in contact directly with those 2 individuals if you need assistance with your staff. And, oh yeah, it's right here. Thank you, Elaine. Yeah, you could contact them directly. We put their contacts up on there. The last thing we wanted to end with was city business assistance. We're trying our best to make sure that we're providing one-on-one case assistance to connect businesses with the latest resources and programs. So we want to make sure to hand you over to specific people, either through the county or through other different resources or through the SBA LA office. So we're trying to make our best to make sure that we're building those bridges so you're not left into a black hole, that we're connecting you with real people in those different departments. Lastly, we're developing resources to promote restaurants and open businesses via GIS mapping, and we will be putting that out there, if not today, within this weekend, so we can make sure that businesses are able to constantly update if they're open or not. And this is a resource, obviously, for residents and for consumers out there. And so if we're asking for for businesses that are open, for restaurants that are open, to be able to sign in and put in your business and what services you provide. If you're doing takeout, if you're doing delivery, what kind of services are you, if you're working with Postmates, Grubhub, and whatnot. So that's going to be launched hopefully today. The last thing is our business assistance lines. You can contact us directly at 310-253-5765 or businessassistance@culvercity.org. And we are logging all our calls and trying to get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. So Colin, that wraps up our presentation. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I know Todd has come on. I'm sorry?
Don't stop sharing it. If you can go back one screen, one of the questions that was asked is if you can share the county. Yep, there you go.
Okay.
If you can leave that up for a few seconds as you're introducing Todd.
Sure, no problem. So Todd Tipton, our Economic Development Manager, is now on the call. He may want to say a few things, an introduction. Again, we really appreciate everyone's attendance. We're happy to, as Liz mentioned, happy to answer calls. We're happy to do one-on-ones. We basically just want you to know we're here to help in any way we can. So Todd? No Todd? Okay. All right, Colin, do you want to take it from here?
Sure, if you want to return us back to, and then if you want to switch host.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So there was a few questions. Again, if you have questions listed, please email them over. The first question I think was pretty much answered, but it was in regards to businesses that are shutting down and what actually the city can protect you of, if landlords can still charge interest and penalties based off of the contract. And I know that was addressed a few minutes ago. And then secondly, will the quarterly sales taxes due at the end of April be extended without fees or penalties? I know you highlighted, or Elizabeth highlighted, some programs at the county level that are there to try to underwrite some of those costs, but from the question for the city is, will the quarterly sales tax due at the end of April be extended without fees and penalties?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I asked that question about the businesses and the interest and all that, but like I don't understand, because if you have a contract with someone and they sue you for not paying it, how does the city help you? Like, isn't that a court issue? Isn't that what I don't understand is the protections these cities are giving through executive orders and how that relates if somebody sues you for not paying your rent.
I know Heather was on here. I'm not sure if she's still on or available and would like to address that.
Yes, I'm still on. Thank you, Colin. The orders are enforceable as law, and the orders specifically provide that if your inability to pay rent is due to COVID-19 related circumstances, and you've done the things that are required of you under the order, which includes giving the proper notice, having those circumstances, giving the proper notice, providing the documentation, that will serve as an affirmative defense in the event your landlord tries to take you to court. And these public orders are enforceable as law.
Thank you.
But like, I get it. But like, my concern here is like kicking the can down the road. If you have, let's say, a business like we have that's tied to the film industry, and we don't know when theaters are going to open up, and then this rent is accumulating over months, I don't know. I have trouble understanding, how this all kind of plays out, because it's a temporary hold on paying it, right? You still have to pay it at some point in time. Like, I don't know. It seems like people are putting in these rules, but I just don't know what's protected. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand the concern, and there is a grace period as of right now. It's a 6-month grace period from the time that the moratorium expires, which is currently May 31st. So it will be 6 months from then that you'd have to pay back your rent. But I understand we get a lot of questions about people may not be able to pay it back in that time. They may not even be able to pay their current rent after the expiration of the moratorium. And as of right now, that there are other resources to get aid, which Elizabeth talked about. I'm not versed in that, so I would have to turn it back over to Elizabeth. But I can just tell you that unless and until orders are extended or changed, then that's the protections we have in place currently with regard to the eviction process.
Thank you. The next question that was submitted is, are landlords legally allowed to ask tenants if they've applied for SBA loans? I guess, and I'm assuming that means in the conversation of maybe speaking between a landlord and tenant about the ability to pay rent, are they allowed to ask that question? This may be another Heather question.
Yeah, sorry, I had to take myself off mute there. No, the only information the landlord can ask from a tenant is they can request documentation that's provided for in the implementation measures. And I think Elizabeth went over some of that, documentation showing loss of income, things of that nature. That's actually specifically, if anyone's taking notes, it's section 6 of the implementation measures lists the types of documentation that a tenant must provide their landlord. They can't ask, they can ask you that, but you don't have to give them that information. The only information that they're entitled to would be that information listed in the implementation measures. If you have a good relationship with your landlord, maybe that's something you talk about with them, but there's no legal requirement that you have to disclose that.
Okay, thank you. The next question, so the relief programs that have been discussed today and at other times seem to be geared towards employers. What programs would do you think are best suited for mom and pop businesses? So I'll let economic development answer that first, and then I might have a few things to chime in as well.
Okay. Colin, do you want me to take?
Sure.
Okay. So one of the things, the program that the county is rolling out, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm trying to take this off, is, like I said, it's, getting out my notes so I could get more clear, because this was, I just listened to this morning. Isn't going to be intended to be more for these mom and pop, the smaller businesses that either were not able to apply for PPP, or did not qualify for PPP, or for any other federal loans. So they are intended to be for businesses from 1 to 10 employees, possibly, from low to no interest, they said. And the grant funds also for intended to be micro grants for the very, very low, for employers that have less than 10 employees. So they are trying through the county to try to address this, and not, the county put in 12 million of seed funds, but they are working with other financial institutions to be able to up that amount, because they know that that gap from what the federal government is providing and is great. So we want to make sure that our smaller businesses and our mom and pop businesses are applying for this program, because this is what they're going to look for. Colin, would you like to add?
No, you kind of hit most of them on the head. I do know that there are some local entities that are looking at forming ones that would be only eligible to small employers. So at not just employee count, but also revenue size, which would drill more towards the mom and pops. Locally, we're trying to see if, and it's still rather preliminary, but to build a local funding source that might be in the way of small micro loans or grants, and working with some other entities around to see if that can be up and running. But that, if we're able to get that off the ground, that would be specifically who would be targeting with that. Because as you are well aware, or maybe not, the PPP and EIDL loans have all been exhausted, at least for the first go round, and the federal government is in conversations, but kind of at an end road right now as far as it relates to funding the next stimulus package. So obviously that is not helping the individual businesses or the collective community as a whole, but that's where it stands now. So from a small mom and pop, I would
like to ask a follow-up.
Sure.
She was saying something about grant funds and rolling out. Is this something that has not rolled out yet and will soon be rolling out? And if so, will Culver City send us an email giving us the information?
Yeah.
So I can answer the first part of that. Elizabeth just mentioned something that's coming from the county that will be coming as far as a rollout in the next 10 to 14 days. I will tell you from our perspective, from the chamber perspective, we get information on, different grants and loans. For example, LA County had one actually it was a couple of days ago, and we shared it in e-blast with all of our contacts, members, non-members, just businesses in general. The challenge with a lot of these, though, is that the line.
I'm sorry, I'd like to interrupt one more time. When you send out the e-blast, are you sending it from Culver City Chamber of Commerce, or is this coming from the City of Culver City?
We're sending them from the chamber, but I know the city has sent out stuff as well.
So can we get on your mail list?
Sure, and I will. In fact, I'll have Monica Alvarez put her email address in the chat box, because right now we're trying to share those resources. I will say to add a little bit of a disclaimer. Regardless of how large the funding sources look, there's very long lines of people that are trying to apply for these. We're trying to share the information as quick as possible. We've shared 2 grants that have been available in the last 2 weeks, and both of which the application pool has closed within 15 minutes. So, there's obviously a great disparity between the need and the sources right now. I know at the county, federal, and also regional levels, there's conversations about that. The U.S. Chamber, who we partner with a lot, is coming out with a grant program that will be rolling out Monday. We're going to be sharing that in an e-blast later today as well as in the morning on Monday. But the long and short of it is that it's $5,000 or $10,000 grant, and according to them, if you make it in the application window and you meet the criteria, you're automatically guaranteed to get that money. So it's not, there's not really a determination on them seeing one company versus another. It's more of speed to application. Having said that, the U.S. Chamber is obviously much larger than we are, and I don't know what the overall pot that they're pulling that money from, but it's a guaranteed $5,000 to $10,000 for businesses that are able to apply. So that would be the.
I'm sorry, but it seems that those that are getting the information are the ones that we need. We need to be able to get this information from a source who gets it quickly. What's the best method?
It's not so much, not to cut you off, it's not so much, I do agree it is important to get the information quickly. We're sending it out and there's a number of people even on this chat that have had the information in time to apply. When you go on at 1 o'clock and it says it doesn't open until 1 o'clock, unfortunately by 1:10, 1:15, sometimes even sooner, the pool is closed. So it's less about, whether you have the information for 2 weeks or for 2 days ahead of time, they're opening the windows at a certain time. So it's about finding more of these sources. So we're going to continue, and I know the city's doing as much as they can on that to address that. But I'd be more than happy, Monica's email's in the chat box. Email her to ask to be added to our list. The city sends stuff out as well, but
we'll
definitely include you there. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hi, Colin. It's Todd Tipton. I'm sorry. I'm unmuted now. Hey, I encourage everyone to sign up to the city's Gov delivery list. You can go online on the city's website and do so. And we're committed to blasting this information to as many people as we can when it comes available. So I think between our two, between the two of us as resources, it's highly likely we get to everybody here in the city that's interested in these kind of things.
That makes sense. Thank you. The next question is in regards to, and this is open for anyone that's spoken so far as presentations today, but what is the county, or even for our mayor or vice mayor, what is the county saying regarding the possibility of reopening businesses and a likely date, given the presentation that came from the federal government yesterday about staged reopening? I don't know if anybody would like to take that. I'm more than happy to answer some of that as well.
The city is waiting and seeing, right? We need all of these decisions to be science-based, and we've often are taking the advice and the leadership of LA County Department of Public Health very seriously. We're working regionally very closely, especially with the city of Los Angeles. And you've probably noticed that the things that our city is putting out mirrors what's happening in LA City. We're a city of 5 square miles, and so a regional approach, a comprehensive approach is really important. As to the opening, we are having these conversations right now because we really want to ensure that people continue to have livelihoods. But without a health-based approach, you can't have a livelihood without a life. So we're doing our level best to be as quick as possible, but definitely as safe as possible. I want to give a shout out to our staff who have been giving so much time and attention to make sure that you get your answers to your questions. We know this is really just an evolving situation, and it's really difficult for all of us, but we've got an absolute wonderful team, and a big shout out to my colleague, Vice Mayor Joran Eriksson, and my colleague Thomas Small, who have been part of these business conversations with the chamber and other businesses on a weekly basis. So we'll keep giving us your feedback too, because this dialogue is very important. So along with the public health recommendations, talking with businesses themselves about safe operations is also very key. So we'll keep our channels of communication open, and you can always feel free to reach out and share your insights with us.
Thank you.
And I can add just a little there. And the models currently that the state and the county are using with regards to the infections, we are supposed to peak in LA County today. So we are watching that very carefully. And then, of course, the question is how fast the down slope going to be, and if there's going to be some reoccurrence. But the decision is ultimately going to, rest with the governor, and it's not going to be all over California at the same time, from what I understand from his office, that they're looking at different regions, different counties. But for us, and Los Angeles has been a little of a hotspot in California with regards to death and cases. So, but we are in the models supposed to peak today or tomorrow.
Thank you. And I've got a few more questions that were listed. I also, before I read through those, I'll let R. Hernandez, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, by all means, if you are able to. If not, I'll ask another question in the interim.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Are architects and designers, interior designers, if they're working on medical office and medical building projects, are they considered an essential business?
So Colin, I can take that one. That one may be case by case. There are instances where architects who are working on institutional buildings and the healthcare that you've noted are considered essential. We'd be happy to take a look at that with you if you want to connect offline.
Oh, now how would I do that? I mean, connect with you?
Yes. So my name's Elaine. If you call our business hotline at 310-253-5765 or email us at business.assistance@culvercity.org, I can get back to you personally.
Can you give me that phone number again?
Sure. The phone number is 310-253-5765.
Okay. And Elaine.
Yep. Just ask for Elaine.
And for anybody
and
else,
email
that
address
has, the email address is in the chat box as well. It's
okay.
business.assistance@culvercity.org. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of both the phone number and email address that are there, so that you can follow up on any individual questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Also, Colin,
thank you.
Sorry, Colin. Remember, if you can work from home, if you can telework, you can continue working safely from home, which I hope most of you are doing.
So here's a question, and this was asked at one of our weekly business roundtable calls. We received another bill for trash and recycling pickup for April. We've been closed since the 16th of March. I've left a message with the sanitation department to ask them, and asked on the prior conference call, but how do I get these bills reversed and canceled without closing our account? Because obviously they have no operations and no trash to speak of.
Hi, Colin. I can take that one. It's Todd Tipton. What the result is that we need to suspend the trash service, and we can help you do that. So if you'll contact the business assistance line, Elaine, you can forward this one to me. I'm working with sanitation on some other issues, and I'll provide the assistance you need to get your issues addressed.
Thank you. So that was a question from Todd, the other Todd. So Todd, if you heard that, when you reach out to the city, just ask for Todd. Last two questions that we have listed down: with the 6-month span of no late fees for rent, is that just related to the month or the moratorium, or would that include 6 months after as well in regards to late fees? For example, no late fees for June rents and July as well, or would it be just the months of the moratorium?
Yes, the landlord's prohibited from charging late fees and charges on the rent that's delayed during the moratorium that's due to the inability to pay due to COVID-19 circumstances. If the moratorium expires on May 31st, June rent is due. If it's late, fees can be changed, and again, charged. And that would be the current situation unless anything is changed or extended. Speaking of that, I did want to mention, staff's bringing an item to the City Council agenda of April 27th to get some direction on looking at the rent payback provisions of both moratoria, because right now we're not quite in line with County and City of LA. So that would include the eviction, commercial tenant eviction moratorium. So people might be interested in submitting comments when that agenda item comes out.
And just for clarification, you said that's going to be April 27th, so the next council meeting?
Yes, the next council meeting. And specifically, we're looking at, right now, the payback grace period is 6 months, whereas the City of LA and County of LA are both 12 months. So we are going to get direction from City Council as to how they want to handle that.
Okay, thank you. And to whoever has a crystal ball in our city, I'd like to answer this one. I think I have an idea, but is the moratorium expiration date of May 31st likely to be extended?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I haven't heard anything. I know that we were actually out in front of LA City and County with the May 31st date. I believe, I think theirs expired earlier than ours, if I recall correctly. And now they're consistent with us. So, you know, it all depends on if we get direction from the council to do that, or what the county and city might do.
I'll just add that we set the May 31st date because it was based on state guidelines from the governor. He put in place an emergency order for the entire state that said that that cities could provide these protections from eviction legally until May 31st. And so if you want to, you know, if you start to see differing directions on a state level, on a regional level, you know, there's a good chance we'll follow that as well. And again, you know, like I said earlier, that's going to be based on public health data, you know, the recommendations for protecting health and safety, as well as feedback that we're hearing.
Okay, thank you. So the person that asked the question about the moratorium earlier kind of had a follow-up question. So we would owe rent the day after the moratorium is lifted after not earning money for 2 months. And that was the question that was asked.
Yeah,
So,
currently, yes, sorry. Yes, that's correct. Currently, that would be correct unless the orders or the moratorium is extended. June rent would be due.
Okay. And then
now, having said that, there is nothing to prevent a landlord and tenant from coming to some sort of an agreement. It's just that the city wouldn't have any sort of enforcement authority in that regard unless the moratorium was extended.
Okay, thank you. And this is more of a statement, I think, than a question, but I would be more than happy to take it. We need help to request increased money for PPP. Any ideas to push the stimulus package? We've advocated on our own at a state level, but collectively with other chambers and associations at the federal level to try to push for that. Without getting too much in the weeds of politics, I'll just say that as it stands right now, both sides understand that there's a need for additional funding. The challenge is that the approaches to it are different. One thought process is that it should go to government agencies and hospitals, and the other side is to business community and infusing the PPP. I think ultimately the result will be somewhere in the middle, but they're not there yet. So that's kind of where it stands. It's less about, you know, communicating the need for the resources, because I think every one of those entities I just mentioned has a valid argument of why there's a need, but it's coming to some resolution at the federal level and having that roll down to state and local as well as the county. The last question, because we're up against time here, is, and this one may be something to take offline, but an owner of the place I rent wants to increase my rent amount for a retrofit work done last year in the building. First, is that legal? And also, does the moratorium, with the moratorium, can this apply to that situation, or is that outside of kind of the scope, since it's not from during the same time period?
Yeah, I think that's outside of the scope of the moratorium. And if we're talking about a commercial property, which I assume we are, there is no rent control for commercial properties like there is for residential right now. So there is no regulation restricting increases on commercial property.
Thank you. And I will direct again for anybody that had a question, asked a question, or leaves here and has a question. I would encourage you in the chat to grab the phone number, which is 310-253-5765 for business assistance. Alternatively, you can email business.assistance@culvercity.org. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank our mayor and vice mayor, as well as the different city staff that have joined us on the call. As I said before, we'll have this recording available on our website. I'm sure the city will share it in some capacity. I would encourage you all to get on our mailing list as well as the mailing list for the city, so that you can be up to date on what's going on. And for those of you that are able or have an interest, take a look at the agenda item for the April 27th meeting as it comes up. Again, thank you for your time, and have a safe and relaxing, hopefully, weekend.